IPL viewership is down 20%, and it's no surprise because this is the first IPL season with the RMG ban in effect. The 2025 real money gaming ban looked like it happened overnight when the industry was not prepared for it. Most prominent among these companies was Dream11, which was the #1 trusted app for fantasy sports in India. The numbers were huge for a country with a GDP close to 4 trillion. In the 2024 and 2025 IPL seasons, on average, the fresh money invested every day into the app looked like this. Regular season games were about 100 and 150 crores a day, playoffs 300 to 400 crores a day, and finals would go up to 600 crores. Other prominent companies in different domains that were disallowed were Jungli Rummy, My11circle, and Pokerbazi. But this ban didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the climax of a century-long tension between India's moral policing and its economic ambition. To understand why your smartphone and gambling activities need to be regulated, we have to look at how we've defined luck versus skill since 1947. Because in India, this isn't just a legal debate. It's the very premise that led to the different forms of gambling and gambling regulation since India became an independent nation. Our gambling laws didn't start in India though. They started in Victorian England. The Public Gambling Act of 1867 was built on a simple idea: gambling makes workers lazy. The British wanted Indians and other colonial workers in factories and fields, not sitting in gaming houses. They banned almost everything except for everyone's favorite: horse racing. The British argued that betting on a horse required superior knowledge. You had to study the animal's pedigree, the jockey's skill, and the track conditions. This created the first great divide. The luck of the masses was a crime, but the skill of the aristocrat who knew the racetrack was a protected sport. After 1947, we kept these rules exactly as they were because the earliest leaders of independent India were very moralistic. They saw gambling as a social evil, but they kept the skill loophole alive in the form of horse race betting. Until 1957, the regulation on gambling continued the way it had been under the British. The Chamar Bagh Wala case in 1957 was a game changer though. To give you context, a Bombay-based company ran a crossword competition which the state tried to ban. But after appealing to various courts, the Supreme Court stepped in and said, wait, if a game needs more brain than luck, it's a legal business, not gambling. And that was the big bang, because in 1968, the court used this logic to say rummy was legal because players must memorize cards and manage discards. But while the courts were being lenient, the streets started blossoming. That started opening the door for more games. As you may have seen in the show, Matka was the king of 1960s Mumbai. A simple numbers game where if a combination of cards was drawn with absurd odds, and if someone bet on those odds and if they hit, the winner got a jackpot. Everyone from the elite to the mill workers played the game despite the risks. Eventually, the state crushed it by implementing its own lotteries, but also because the Matka kings had built a parallel power structure that the government couldn't control, and also because the underworld wanted control and cricket betting was about to explode. Until 1975, cricket had just one format: Test cricket. Then came the 1975 One Day World Cup. Cricket became India's true religion and betting became its shadow. Because it's a game that is played in multiple sports and each ball and its outcome can be bet on rather than the overall result only. The markets and odds started exploding. While the official law remained frozen as it was made by the British, billions of rupees started moving through underground bookies. Cricket betting alone grew into a massive unorganized industry with an estimated $2 billion in annual revenue in the 80s and 90s. And then came another boom. To capture lost revenue, smaller and newer states like Goa and Sikkim legalized casinos to boost tourism, but kept them isolated. Goa on boats in the rivers and Sikkim in the remote northeast. These were India's first economic zones of luck. Casinos invite tourism, and the parallel hospitality and services economy starts to grow, employing locals, which helps them make money and educate their children better. But only these states and Daman and Diu have legalized casinos, as other bigger states just simply cannot afford the financial responsibility of debt-laden citizens. Cricket betting, meanwhile, continued to rise and line the pockets of many, including the infamous Dawood Ibrahim. But with cases of match fixing getting exposed and the arrival of the internet, gamblers would soon find a new home. When the internet arrived in the early 2000s, it was a mess of unregulated experimentation. Sites like Playwin, an online lottery, were early successes, attracting over 50 million Indians to lottery games. But the failures were more. One of the earliest movers was the Times Group India Times portal. They tried to launch various card games and prize-based contests. And while technically a success in terms of traffic, it failed to monetize into a real money gaming powerhouse because the country's digital infrastructure at the time couldn't handle secure high-frequency financial transactions. And people still didn't trust the use of digital payments as much in a cash-dominant era, especially for gambling activities out of all things. There were also a huge number of frauds. This era was full of fly-by-night operators where users would deposit money only for the site to vanish overnight, and there was zero regulation to protect them. These early failures were making the government nervous, setting the stage for a trust gap that only big VC-funded startups could eventually close. Around 2010, the skill loophole met the smartphone, which now had a screen controlled by touch. Entrepreneurs realized that they could apply the 1957 logic to fantasy sports, calling it skill-based rather than luck-based. Their logic was that studying players' data, pitch conditions, coaching, and team camaraderie required an exceptional amount of skill that can't just be guessed. They pioneered the concept of pooling funds, where friends would pay each other, with the platform taking a 15 to 25% commission. By 2024, India had approximately 591 million gamers, nearly one-fifth of the global gaming population. In FY23, the online gaming segment touched a market size of almost 17,000 crores, attracting over 23,000 crores in investment between FY20 and FY24. Apps like Dream11 and Jungly Rummies use celebrities and very sleek technology to look ethical. During the IPL 2024 alone, fantasy sport platforms generated 510 million in gross gaming revenue, a 27% increase year on year. Several platforms also allowed deposits without any financial guardrails, meaning if someone only had 5 lakhs in savings and they invested it in an online card game and lost, the platform would have had no way of knowing. Also, gambling was a state subject, even if mobile gaming was prevalent across the country. But by 2021, the skill mask started to slip when shocking incidents started to emerge. Tamil Nadu alone saw 17 deaths by suicide due to online gaming in just 3 years. In Feb 2026, a tragic incident in Ghaziabad involved 3 minor sisters who died by suicide after becoming addicted to an online game. Estimates suggest that Indians lost nearly 20,000 crores on online gaming and betting platforms in 2025 alone. An independent study even found that 7.4% of college students in South India admitted to being problem gamblers. Then came the national security angle. The government discovered offshore networks in countries like China and Korea using AI-driven bots and aggressive loan offers to trap users who lost money. Thousands of crores were moved annually through gaming channels without adequate anti-money laundering safeguards. Here's what the government first did. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology introduced rules to regulate online real money games. By defining gaming platforms as intermediaries, the center successfully bypassed the state list to set national standards for KYC, age restrictions, and regulation on these games. In 2023, the GST Council imposed a 28% tax on the full face value of bets, signaling the end of the industry's tax-friendly status. For most part before that, there was no standard tax rate, and when GST was even implemented, it was levied on the value of the commission, not the bet. Let's suppose I place a bet for 100 rupees on which the platform takes 10 rupees as commission. The platform would be taxed on 10 rupees at 18% if it was classified under the skill label, which at the time covered fantasy sports, rummy, poker, and other card games where you had to stake money to win money. That changed when the tax was now on the 100 rupee bet, paid at source, which meant that the platform would now pay 28 rupees instead of 1.8 rupees because of the updated increase in tax rate. The shift towards a total ban began in 2025 and was finalized with the Promotion and Regulation of Online Gaming Act, PROGA 2026, which came into full force on May 1st, 2026. The government cited that the social costs outweighed the industry's economic benefits. Industry folks from online gaming found the regulation unfair because it came without adequate warning, and overnight their business models were made useless. The government could not ignore the addiction impact and security threats where they had received multiple alerts which showed that unruly terrorist organizations were transferring money to each other through some of these platforms. Plus, addictions have a huge impact. The government first highlighted independent case studies where individuals, particularly first-time earners aged 18 to 30, lost their entire savings chasing this easy wealth, leading to massive household debt. Data from states like Telangana and Tamil Nadu showed a disturbing trend of suicides linked to online betting losses. Reports indicated that in early 2025, those regions saw as many as 7 deaths per month, directly attributed to the stress of gambling debt from these platforms. The 2026 ban was also because many young adults began treating RMG as a legitimate investment activity or a career path rather than entertainment. The government argued that this diverted productive human capital away from the traditional economy. The 2026 law deliberately collapsed the skill versus luck distinction. The government's stance is that even if a game requires skill, the monetary wagering element, where someone has to stake money first for a chance to win, creates the addiction and social harm, making the skill argument irrelevant, especially when it comes to public safety and financial responsibility. Proga 2025, the act to ban RMG, was the final hammer drop, effectively erasing the skill defense for the digital world to protect public health and national security. Now, is a total ban the answer? Because when you ban a human instinct like gambling, which has prevailed right from the times of Shakuni and Yudhishthir, it often just goes underground like Matka. Other countries moved away from bans towards a harm minimization model that uses data to protect the vulnerable. The UK has something called the affordability standard. Their affordability checks mean that if a player's losses hit a certain threshold, often as low as £125 a month, the platform must verify their income. Since implementing stricter KYC and affordability rules, the UK has seen gambling rate remain low at just 0.3% of total population, while still collecting over 14 billion in annual gross gambling yield. Singapore has the friction strategy, where it uses high economic barriers to protect its own citizens while allowing the industry to flourish for tourists. Singaporean citizens must pay a daily entry fee of $150 or an annual fee of $3,000 just to enter a physical casino, whereas it's close to nothing for tourists to enter. This financial friction saw the local participation rate in gambling drop from 52% to 44% in over a decade, preventing the poor from using casinos as a quick fix for debt. The spelpaus system, which Sweden introduced, where with one click, a user can ban themselves from all licensed gambling in the country, online and offline, for a set period, really worked well for them. Because within the first year, over 45,000 people voluntarily blocked themselves, and the shift moved the market from 50% unregulated to over 90% regulated, ensuring taxes stay within the country rather than leaking offshore. This is not completely foolproof though, because without education, it's expecting too much out of citizens. Australia has something called the loss limiting technology, especially in states like Victoria, where slot machines are being fitted with mandatory pre-commitment tech. You must decide how much you're willing to lose before you even push a button, and that's now being applied to online gaming platforms as well. Initial data showed a 15 to 20% reduction in total losses amongst high-risk players without affecting the recreational users who just play for fun. India has the infrastructure to lead this transition. We need a smart filtering approach that bridges the gap between privacy and protection. Imagine a system where your ability to play isn't determined by a blanket law, but by a financial health API. Instead of a ban, we use India's account aggregator framework. If your UPI history shows that you're on the edge, or if your stakes consistently exceed 15% of your monthly disposable income, the app locks you out. Strict KYC requirements must be made mandatory for this. Next, we can even do something around behavioral markers. We ordered the apps for nudge architecture, which means that if a user is chasing losses, depositing money immediately after a loss, or playing for more than 4 hours straight, the filter enforces a mandatory cooling off period before which the person cannot use the app again. Verified entry sticks can also be a good method. It's similar to Singapore, where we could implement a digital entry fee to online games, a small non-refundable stake that is verified against your tax returns to ensure that you can afford this entertainment cost. Obviously, all of these suggestions only apply to a tax-paying population and not people who aren't even at the income bracket to pay their taxes. Physical gambling still remains a state subject, but even the states cannot afford the social costs, no matter the pot of gold their coffers stand to make, as Goa and Sikkim have shown. See, gambling, much like alcohol, tobacco, and drugs, starts as a social activity. Often people get into it deeper after they see someone around them make a fortune. And that's when the addiction gets deeper. You just sink more buckets to recover the ones you've already lost in the well. Ultimately, the 2025 ban reflects a state that doesn't trust its people to make good choices. But the real fix isn't just a law, it's education. We should simulate luck versus skill in schools and colleges. If a student plays a simulation and sees how the house always wins through the math of probability, they won't bank on a game that will mostly make them lose. They'll be more responsible when they become adults. For now, the government feels that a carpet ban is essential, especially the troubled economic times that we're going through. But on the other hand, gambling is a sunrise industry with huge government yields for central and state governments, as we've seen in the UK. And this can help us navigate the economic crisis. Ultimately, it's a question of balance, and the government has picked a side for now, with no major political opposition. We'll have to wait and see when online gambling with monetary wagering is allowed again. But for now, the RMG ban is in effect, IPL viewership is down, and gambling regulation is stricter than it's ever been in the last few decades. If you like this video, drop your feedback in the comment section and like, share and subscribe for more content that pulls you closer to our culture, not just history and heritage, but also things that connect to us as modern, contemporary Indians living in the 21st century.